Yo, what's going on, your boy Ghost here, and today I am bringing you guys another comparison video between the PPSH and Bullfrog. And I wanted to make this video because I wanted to shed some light on the PPSH, which in my opinion is a very good SMG, but it's also very overlooked. And with the new season right around the corner, I wanted to kind of give it a little more attention because it could potentially end up being the new best SMG for Season 5. Right now, I would argue that it's a pretty solid SMG. You could even consider it to be like a top 3. Yeah, man. Before we get into the comparison, though, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000. We're about like 180, a little bit less subscribers away from that. So if you come a brother out by hitting that sub button, we greatly appreciate it. And also, Season 5 right around the corner. We're gonna be going crazy over on Twitch. So if you could do me the favor, follow me over on my Twitch channel at alwaysghost_. I'd be greatly appreciated. And yeah, man. I guess with that being said, let's get into this comparison. And then we have the recoil pattern for the PPSH, and as you can see, the recoil pattern itself isn't too crazy. It's pretty simple, and in terms of just control and overall range for this weapon, it isn't too bad. But in comparison to the Bullfrog, I would say that the PPSH kind of lacks in the range department and whatnot. And I know that I'm not using the underbarrel on the PPSH, but to be honest, even if I had an underbarrel on this gun, I don't think it would be too impactful. I feel like if I use the underbarrel, it would hurt me a lot more than help benefit me, because, you know, if I use the underbarrel, I'm going to have to give up an attachment that helps me have better mobility and ADS speed. And if I end up putting the underbarrel, I mean, yeah, I can use the 55 round mag, but I don't know, I just don't think the underbarrel is worth it. And I do like using the 71 round mag. 55 round mag is still good. I see a lot of people actually end up preferring the 55 round mag with the 71 round mag, which is very interesting because I would feel like for a weapon that has a pretty fast fire rate, why would you not want as many bullets as possible? But to each their own. You're going to run the gun however you want. But like I mentioned earlier, the PPSH is one of those weapons that for some reason has been just in the shadows for the whole time that it's been out. And to be honest, I don't really understand why, because for the time that it's been out, I can't really recall a crazy SMG meta where it was like an over-dominant SMG, or secondary for that matter, in the meta. And for the PPSH to not be talked about more is kind of criminal. And I know at first when it came out, it wasn't the best. And yeah, you know, it took 2 buffs for it to actually be a pretty solid weapon. But even after those 2 buffs, many people just still wrote it off and didn't really give it a chance. And it's very surprising because this weapon is very solid. And when I see, I guess, quote-unquote, pro Warzone players using it in customs, which if you're not familiar with customs, those are private match lobbies of Warzones of just really good players facing off each other. And some of them prefer using PPSH, which is insane, because I feel like if you were to use a weapon against really good players, maybe PPSH won't be the first thing to come to mind. But the fact that some of these people trust PPSH that much shows that this weapon is pretty solid. But again, man, like, it's kind of mind-boggling to me that this weapon doesn't get the attention that it deserves. Because look, in terms of fire rate, it isn't, I wouldn't say it's like close to the Mag 10. I think it's pretty far off, kind of. Not as far off as some of the other guns, like the Bullfrog, for example. But the fact that like a Bullfrog has the ability to be considered one of the best SMGs, even with the fire rate being so low. I mean, damage is pretty solid, but the PPSH damage is also pretty up there. And again, I just think it's kind of criminal that this weapon hasn't been given just no opportunity to shine. But hopefully with this upcoming season, maybe with a certain tweaks to certain weapons, maybe actually a surprise little buff for PPSH could make this weapon be considered the next top tier SMG. But I know it's a little hopeful considering what's going to happen with this next season. I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen with this next season. I haven't seen the patch notes, obviously. They haven't dropped them yet, so at the time of me making this video, they haven't dropped them yet. So I'm curious to see if the PPSH will even get some sort of attention in these patch notes. I mean, I would doubt it, just because it's not really like, again, it's not one of those weapons that comes to mind. And on top of that, a new SMG is going to be in a Warzone in Season 5, and you know, who knows what's going to happen there. Who knows if that SMG is going to be like stupid, overpowered to the point where no one wants to use any of the SMGs. But besides the point, man, with that being said, let's get into the Bullfrog /stats. And here we have the recoil pattern for the Bullfrog. And as you guys can see, it's a pretty straightforward recoil pattern as well. Nothing too crazy in that range. Obviously, this weapon is really reliable. But in comparison to the PPSH and picking one over the other for range, I think that the Bullfrog is the obvious choice. I think we all would probably come to an agreement on that. You don't even have to know statistics to know or to pick the Bullfrog over PPSH. If you simply use both these weapons, I feel like most people would lean towards the Bullfrog without hesitation. But again, I feel like that kind of depends on the person, the player, and the class setup. But yeah, that's besides the point. So for the first statistic that I want to talk about is going to be the fire rate. So for the fire rate for the Bullfrog, we have a 751 RPM, whereas the PPSH is a 904 RPM. And to some of you guys, if you've been following the comparisons of my channel, that difference right there might seem not that big considering what we compared the Bullfrog to. But to some of you guys who are not familiar with the statistics, this might seem like a pretty significant advantage for the PPSH. But I gotta say, yes, the PPSH obviously has a slight advantage in fire rate to the Bullfrog, and you know, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's not like a significant thing, but in comparison to what the Bullfrog has to go up against, and by that I mean like the Mac 10 and CX9, which has 1,000 plus RPMs, which are very much more significant than PPSH, the Bullfrog kind of gets blessed here in this comparison. But again, this difference in fire rate isn't something to just like write off, because it's still noticeable. It's still pretty significant in close range encounters, even though, you know, the Bullfrog has, I would say, a pretty marginal difference in damage, which we'll get into in a little bit. But listen, having a faster fire rate than just any weapon really is going to put you at a good advantage at close range, and that's what PPSH really excels. Because like I mentioned, I keep mentioning this, the PPSH doesn't have exactly the strongest long range game, so it has to be pretty effective at close range for it to even be considered or to be put in conversation for a somewhat usable SMG. But in this case, the PPSH excels at close range, and I know, and it might not seem like it does when you hear these stats, but trust me, bro, like it definitely hits different, and that fire rate is probably what saves this gun from being complete mediocrity. So for the first damage profile that we're going to talk about is the Bullfrog from 0 to 13 meters. So for that range, we have 46 damage to the head, 31 to the chest and stomach, and then 27 to the extremities, which are the limbs. And then for the PPSH 0 to 17 meters, we have 33 to the head, 26 to the chest and stomach, and then 23 to the extremities. Now I know that the damage there, or the damage difference there, is very significant, but trust me, the fire rate is what's the saving grace of PPSH. It's what makes it not be completely overwhelmed by the Bullfrog, because by those statistics, the Bullfrog should win a matchup between the two every single time. But listen, statistics don't tell the whole story. That's not what you should base off these engagements on, because stats are not 100% of just what happens in game. There's so many factors in game that determine what guns or what players gonna come out on top, even regardless of the weapon. Now, obviously, there's special cases where you have weapons like the DMR or AUG, which it doesn't really matter because they kill extremely fast. The PPSH and Bullfrog aren't those weapons that 3-shot at close range. They kill fast, but it requires certain factors for one gun to be or overcome another one. So I hope you guys don't like base your opinions on just the stats alone, because that would be a pretty bad thing. Anyways, moving on to the farther ranges. For 13 meters and above, we have 37 damage to the head for the Bullfrog, 25 to the chest and stomach, and 22 to the extremities. And then for the PPSH for 17 meters and above, we have 31 to the head, 24 to the chest and stomach, and 21 to the extremities. Now, crazy enough, at range, the PPSH is a lot closer to the Bullfrog in damage, like a 1-2 bullet difference. Aside from the headshot. Headshot damage, that is completely for the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog wins that 100%. No question about it. It doesn't really matter. The fact is, you get headshots, both of them are, you know, if you have a fight between both SMGs and both of them are just straight headshots, the Bullfrog's gonna win. There's no factors there. But we all know that in Warzone, unless you're a hacker, you're not hitting 100% of your headshots. Alright? But anyways, it's kind of crazy that the PPSH is a lot closer in damage to the Bullfrog at range, where that's kind of the territory that it doesn't really stand a chance in, even aside from these stats. Because it's just, again, if you use the PPSH, it's not that easy to control at range. It's really not. And if you use the PPSH at range, you're going to set yourself up fairly. You're going to be able to do a lot of damage, but more than likely, you're going to go down, and when you die, you look at that kill cam, you're going to see that you left that person 1 or 2 shot. Trust me, I know, because I speak from experience. It always happens. When you try to overstep the boundaries of the PPSH, you're going to be set up for disappointment. Whereas the Bullfrog, it's a lot more reliable, a lot easier to control, a lot easier to hit shots, and, you know, you're overall going to have a better chance at succeeding that range with the Bullfrog. But anyways, man, with that being said, I'm hoping that this comparison will open your eyes a little bit to the PPSH's potential. If you're willing to use a Mac 10, please consider using the PPSH, because the PPSH is better in damage, obviously slower in fire rate, but listen, give it a chance. Give it a chance, because I think this weapon is a top 3 candidate on a good day. And with the new season around the corner, I'm curious to see if this weapon is going to maintain some sort of momentum or gain some momentum and actually be a solidified top SMG in the game. Because with patch notes coming around, you know, who knows what SMG might get tweaked or just completely eradicated from the whole conversation of being a good SMG. And not to mention, we also have like a new SMG coming in, so it's going to be very interesting to see where we are in like a few weeks with changes coming to the game. But I mean, hey, I don't know. People, I think that might be the least of people's concerns right now, considering what's happening at Warzone. But I'm rambling, I apologize. Anyways, with that being said, man, let me know what you guys think about the PPSH and where do you personally rank it in comparison to the Bullfrog. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later, and I'm out. Peace.